Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Welcome to New York and the 2023 U.S. Open, where spectacular awaits. Hallowed grounds that have inspired generations of tennis fans everywhere, who have been witness to incredible matches from the greatest legends of the game. The home of the epic night matches, with that New York-infused energy from the crowd that is unrivaled by any other venue, where memories are waiting to be created in every corner. It's an electricity you don't just see or hear, it's one you feel. This is the U.S. Open, and this is Courtside, the official podcast for the U.S. Open. And here's your host, Marc Stern.
Hello and welcome to Courtside. Thank you so much for tuning in for Day 14, the final day of the 2023 U.S. Open, as we crown our women's doubles champs and the men's singles champion. We'll have all the highlights from those two matches, plus I will chat with Nick McCarvel to get his thoughts on Coco's win and the big takeaways from the tournament. But we've got matches to get into, so let's dive into the highlights, and we'll begin with the women's doubles final that pitted the 16th-seeded team of Gabriela Dabrowski and Erin Routliffe against the 12th seeds Laura Siegemund and Vera Zvonareva. The first set was even, neither side able to force a break. So it went to a tiebreaker, and it would be Routliffe and Dabrowski who found a way to get ahead.
Outside of the court to Siegemund. Siegemund takes it early. Routliffe a scuffed volley there. Siegemund gets it back on the lob. Scissors kick overhead. Good there by Routliffe. Backhand lace by Zvonareva. She backs up, takes it on the rise with the overhead. It's a sitter here and a moon ball there by Routliffe. Backing up, overhead middle of the court. Long by Siegemund. Dabrowski, Routliffe for the fourth set point. Got it done!
They would keep the pressure on in the second set when they broke Siegemund and Zvonareva to begin the set. And then they broke again to put the match firmly in their control.
Dabrowski ready to return at love 40 to go up 3-love in the second set would be a commanding lead en route to a title here. Rocking back Siegemund into the fourth. Double fault though from Siegemund. And the rout is on for Dabrowski Routliffe. They're up 3-love in the second set.
And while Siegemund and Zvonareva did break right back, they couldn't get that second break to draw even, and soon enough, Dabrowski and Routliffe had the title in their sight.
Swing side to side is Dabrowski. Zvonareva, championship number 3, over to Dabrowski, takes it early, forehand out wide. It is wide there from Zvonareva. Dabrowski Routliffe triumph, and they win the 2023 U.S. Open Women's Doubles title, 7-6, 6-3.
This is the first Grand Slam for Routliffe, and it's the third for Dabrowski, who won mixed doubles titles in Australia and in Paris. So congratulations to both of them. And that brought us to the main event. Daniil Medvedev against Novak Djokovic, a rematch of the 2021 final that saw Medvedev beat Djokovic in straight sets, denying Djokovic the calendar Grand Slam. Things did not start out well for Medvedev, who came out of the gate with a shaky serve, and Djokovic made him pay immediately.
Serve T good, chip return. Medvedev forehand cross, misses long, broken at love in his opening service game, and Novak Djokovic quickly to 2-love.
Medvedev had to work hard on his serve, but managed to hold through the rest of the set, but he was unable to get to Djokovic's serve and found himself trailing in the match.
Toss, serve, good. Medvedev backhand goes middle. Djokovic backhand up the line. Forehand Medvedev up the line. Djokovic backhand cross. Medvedev backhand cross. Djokovic backhand goes middle. Medvedev backhand up the line. Just misses long. Novak Djokovic takes set number 1. Early breaks. Hold from there. So it's Novak Djokovic 1 set to the good in the men's singles final.
Medvedev raised his game in the second set, but still couldn't penetrate Djokovic's serve. As Medvedev served to go up 4-3, Djokovic turned up the heat, forcing a break point and really making Medvedev work hard to hold, which he did after 4 deuces and several long rallies. After a couple of those rallies, Djokovic stumbled and showed how exhausted he was, the first real sign of weakness so far. But would Medvedev be able to exploit that? In the next game, he continued to wear down Djokovic with long points, and for the first time, Djokovic seemed a little wobbly, with 2 double faults and a few stumbles after points, and then Medvedev eventually forced his first break chance. But Djokovic fought it off, and then found a way to get the hold.
Serve is good. It's a serve and volley. What a return touch volley. Djokovic. Oh, my word! The crowd ready to explode, and they do. What a touch volley for Novak Djokovic to fight off the break chance as we go back to deuce. A nearly 12-minute game and a massive fist pump there from Novak Djokovic.
They would stay on serve until Djokovic was serving at 5-6 to send it to a tiebreaker. But Medvedev worked his way to his second break chance, which would have leveled the match at one set apiece if he wanted. But Djokovic fended off that chance and eventually held. So to the breaker we would go. Back and forth they went, each point becoming a mighty battle. And though Djokovic was weary, he still found a way to win the most important points at the most critical junctures.
5-6, first serve. Good. Chip return lands good short. Medvedev inside out forehand. Djokovic backhand. Medvedev backhand into the net. Novak Djokovic. How? We'll never know. Novak Djokovic, 2-0 lead. An epic second set in 1 hour and 44 minutes.
And now, even though momentum seemed to shift in the second set back to Medvedev, he couldn't capitalize on it and was now down 2-0 and would have no margin for error for the rest of the match. But as he served to make it 2-2 in the third set, he gave Djokovic an opening and paid the price.
Second serve, good. Djokovic through the middle. Forehand Medvedev, Djokovic backhand cross. Medvedev backhand middle, inside out forehand Djokovic. Medvedev backhand up the line, misses long, and Novak Djokovic, the break to 3-1.
Just when it looked like Djokovic had all he needed to capture his fourth U.S. Open title, Medvedev struck back to force his first break of the match, but was immediately broken back, and now Djokovic was just 2 games away from the title. After an easy hold by Djokovic, Medvedev struggled but held, and that put the match, the title, and Grand Slam number 24 on Djokovic's racket.
Djokovic ready, second serve. Good. Forehand Medvedev up the line. Djokovic forehand middle. Medvedev backhand middle. Djokovic forehand middle. Medvedev forehand crosses into the net. Novak Djokovic wins the 2023 U.S. Open title. The greatest gets greater.
And that would do it for his fourth U.S. Open title, first since 2018. And yes, that unbelievable number, Grand Slam win number 24. What else can we say about Novak Djokovic? The records and milestones continue to pile up. It's almost too many to count. And at the age of 36, he's still the most dominant player in the sport right now. It doesn't really show many signs of letting up. Congratulations, Novak. This truly was a win for the ages. And while that's it for the tournament, we're not quite done yet here. Up next, Nick McCarvel will join me to give his thoughts on the big moments from the last 2 weeks, including Coco's win, Caroline Wozniacki's great run in her comeback, and a terrific tournament for the Americans. That's all next, right here on Courtside.
A tennis serve allows just half a second to react. And when life can also change in the blink of an eye, we help protect our clients from risk. And always keep our eye on the ball. Chubb, proud insurance partner of the U.S. Open.
As the official fan ticket marketplace of the U.S. Open, Ticketmaster has the widest selection of tickets available, so you can be there live for every match. When you buy on Ticketmaster, you can pick the seat you want, so you can make sure you have the best view of every pivotal moment of the match. Plus, all U.S. Open tickets from Ticketmaster are mobile, which makes getting in on match day a breeze. And if your plans change, Ticketmaster gives you a safe and easy way to sell your tickets. Whether you're buying or selling tickets on Ticketmaster, all tickets are verified, so you never have to worry. Head to Ticketmaster.com or download the Ticketmaster app to find your seat today.
There's more to gaining advantage in tennis than a blistering serve. That's why the USTA works with Deloitte. See how we help it elevate fan experiences, advance business strategy, and more at Deloitte.com/USTA.
This is Courtside, the U.S. Open podcast.
Well, I know Jim Nantz always says at the Masters, a tradition like no other, but quite frankly, he's wrong. The only tradition like no other is my conversation at the end of the U.S. Open with my good friend Nick McCarvel. I forget how we sort of stumbled into this. I think the first year I was doing the show, we just kind of, the schedule worked out that way. And I was like, well, this is the best conversation I've had in 2 weeks. I've sort of strong-armed you into doing it every year. And you're always very kind to sit with me. But I love your big picture view of the tournament. And I want to get to your big takeaways in just a second. But I have to lead with them. You and I have not had a chance to talk about a bunch of stuff. But Coco Gauff's win yesterday over Aryna Sabalenka. I mean, first of all, just the tennis itself, it was, a brilliant comeback. It looked like, okay, this is not going to go her way. And she guts it out and she wins her first Grand Slam. And it was just a moment of pure joy, I felt. What'd you think of it?
Wow. It was, well, yeah, this is a tradition like no other, or we need our own tagline at this point, Mark. But no,
Yes, we do.
It's a pleasure to join you and sort of reflect back on. And I actually think Coco's the perfect, obviously the perfect starting point, mostly because I think it's not only a tennis, women's tennis, a sporting, but a cultural moment. And she's this wonder kid who broke out at Wimbledon in 2015 and Coco Mania, and so much was, or excuse me, not 2015, 2019 when she was 15.
Right.
I actually watched most of the match from up where we are in commentary, and watching her, it was 1-0 Sabalenka on serve in the second set, but Coco fought off a couple break points. And I think one of those points, or one of the ensuing points thereafter, was finally the first really dramatic point that she had won, really, of the whole match. And I turned to Robbie Koenig and I was like, I feel like this could be a moment, because, and not that I was trying to be prolific, but more of like, these matches can often hinge on a moment. And
yes,
it allowed her, I think, to settle in. It obviously was important for her not to go down a break in the second set. And then it really allowed the crowd to she was pretty blown out of the water in that first set. Sabalenka can redline. She was. And then the way that, I was in Cincinnati, and then obviously here, I was not in Washington, D.C., but watching her, and the biggest thing that changed this summer is, and there's so much made of Brad Gilbert and the new team, and fine, we can, Coco's the one playing the tennis matches.
Yes, and occasionally saying to the box, "I'm okay. You don't need to talk to me. I've got this."
Yeah, which is actually goes with my point of, and I think great champions will be able to tell you this, is it's all about match management and navigation. And
yes.
At times I would have said that Sabalenka was far and away the best player of this tournament overall. But tennis isn't about, it's not 4 rounds of golf where you accumulate your best score. It's not a basketball game where you run up the score into the fourth quarter and then you get to sit back and put in the subs. You have to win. You have to beat every opponent. You have to, jump over every hurdle. And Coco, we saw it from that very first set against Laura Siegemund and into the final against Sabalenka. She just figured out a way. And it reminded me of the final in Cincinnati, when the second set, quite honestly, it was a pretty scratchy match. It was really hot. The conditions were brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And she beat Muhova with match management. And I say that in terms of managing points, using your strengths when you feel them, protecting your weaknesses when you feel them. And Mark, man, I was courtside. I snuck down at the end. I did it in a legal way, I think. But it was pretty close to courtside. And wow, the noise and the emotion and just talking, you could feel it in the arena. And listening to Coco say, I want to thank all the people that have doubted me. Like, this is a young individual who is clear in her intents and purposes. And yeah, wholly impressive. And watch out. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know what comes
seriously.
next. And I'm also, I think sometimes we're in the business of, this is just the beginning, and this is her first of many, or whatever people tend to say. I actually really kind of despise that way of commentary, but I say watch out, because I think she's unlocked another chamber within herself, and then now she gets to choose how she uses it.
Well, she's learned so much along the way, each step. Like, okay, you make the finals at the French Open. You've learned how to get to the finals of the Grand Slam. Every experience she has, she takes that and turns it internally and uses it to help herself get better. And so I'm with you. I don't want to get into the prediction. Oh, I think she'll wind up with 12 Grand Slams when it's all said and done. Like, that's just useless chatter at this point. But I will say I'm not going to be surprised if she piles up a bunch, because now that she knows how to win in a Grand Slam, she has that experience. I just think she's going to be incredibly tough in any tournament that she's in. And it's not even just the tennis, Nick. I wasn't at the WTA dinner before the tournament started. Were you at that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the speech that she gave, I've talked about this with a number of people. You and I probably chatted about it. It's not only that she's a player of ability beyond her years, she's like mature, and there's a wisdom about her beyond her years. And it's, you draw the line from Billie Jean King to Chrissy Martina and to Venus, these people that are really pushing forward on fronts outside of the tennis world. And it feels like that Coco is taking that baton and understands I'm going to be a great champion here in tennis, but I need to be a champion off the court as well. And she sort of embraces that role.
Yeah, and it's not forced. I think that's the biggest thing, is it seems to all be internal, and I think, no matter what you do in life or who you are, or, your job or what you stand for, I think oftentimes we all, there are times when you feel like you're pulled externally. And I actually think you look at her loss at Wimbledon to Sophia Kenin, and that was actually a pretty good quality match in the first round. And she ends up winning Washington, Cincinnati, and the US Open, 3 titles, 17-1, but it all was done internally. And that's a little bit, your point is to my point is to my point again, is in, these sports demand, obviously, certainly Coco has insecurities, we all do, but to be so clear in your purpose and to be so clear in, I was thinking about it this morning, actually struggling to get out of bed and kind of being like, well, if Coco can do it, so can I. It's like so cheesy.
Right. No, but that's stuff that works.
It does take that kind of, mentality, and she's obviously shown that. And it is authentic, and it's thoughtful and thought out. Like, she's not just doing it. She's not just making a speech at the WTA dinner celebrating 50 years. And she's not just saying to Billie Jean when she gets handed a check for $3 million, like, thank you, Billie Jean. Like, this is I'm evidence of what you've done. And
right.
Billie actually last night at the Hall of Fame dinner, Billie spoke really well and with Tracy Austin, and said, what I'm doing is, or what I've always thought of is obviously the present, but the future too. And Billie said, she said it in such a way, it's going to sound like she's not humble here, but obviously Billie Jean King is.
Yeah.
She said, I could have won a lot. I could have won a lot more. She won 39 majors, 12 in singles, but I could have won a lot more. And she said, I chose to fight certain fights, and, Battle of the Sexes, the original 9, the WTA. So Coco, it feels like, and just what a tournament. And it feels like such a, it feels like a moment, and
it does.
I think I've been, a lot of people, obviously a lot of my social media is full of tennis people, but a lot of non-tennis people, and recording their TVs at home, and I'm not crying, you're crying, and all that kind of stuff.
It's dusty in here. What's going on? No, she goes beyond just the hardcore tennis fans. She will cross over and bring a lot of people to the sport. And she does play with joy, and she's still a kid. And I talked about this with Mary Carrillo yesterday. She'll still giggle, and like post-match interviews with her and Jessica Pegula, you can see that they're kidding around. And so she's dead serious when she's on the court. And she had that sort of like killer look about her throughout every match she played. But as soon as the match is over, that smile comes out, and it's pure joy. And, I just think she's got a great base, like of a great human being, and she's just blossoming in front of us, fulfilling all that potential that we sort of hoped for with her. And so that to me is really cool to see, and then to sort of extrapolate that out a little bit further with we always talk about how are the Americans doing, and we, sometimes focus on the men, sometimes focus on the women. But it was a really good tournament for the Americans, I thought, and I think she's leading that charge. But to have Maddie Keys make it to the finals, and wow, she was just a hair's breadth from making it to the finals. Losing to Sabalenka and Ben Shelton. What did you make of Ben Shelton? This is a magnificent win against Tiafoe, and then sort of gets taken to school by the master Djokovic in that semifinal match. But what's your takeaway from him, and what do you think his ceiling is?
Ooh, I have no idea. Yeah, I agree with you. What a great tournament for for the Americans. You look across all actually 5 disciplines. When you look at, mixed doubles, throw that in. Jess Pegula and Austin Krajicek making the final. We saw, Taylor Townsend, Leylah Fernandez had success in doubles. Actually, Jem Brady was in the semifinals too. Rajiv Ram and Joe Salisbury, they win doubles. That's a three-peat.
Three-peat for the first time in 100 years or 110 years. It's crazy.
I mean, so obviously a lot of successes across the board, specifically on Ben Shelton. It was coming of age, and I actually thought the Tommy Paul, it was amazing to me that he backed up, one, that he beat Tommy Paul, and then that he backed it up against Francis. He kind of took the book that Francis had written last year and almost like snatched out of his hand.
Yeah.
And I think that surprised Francis a little bit. And there were some hot takes around, like, was he not deferential enough? And, the Grant Holloway dialing in and the hanging up the phone and all of that, I think but also, like, this is sport and entertainment. Like, like, go for it.
Yeah.
And he kind of had that puffed out chest. I think when you're 20 and you're doing something for the first time, he'd been to the quarters in Australia, but that was a whole different beast, I think, being here at the US Open.
Sure,
and also being
his crowd.
5 and 15, I think, between Australia and something like that. I mean, the record was pretty rough.
Yeah.
He hadn't won consecutive matches from Australia to the US Open. That's 7 months. And then he makes the semifinals. I mean, that's 5 match wins, including 2 over top 15 Americans on Arthur Ashe Stadium. I think you kind of look at Coco and her match management. I think Ben is figuring out how to use his tools, mixing up the serve. Obviously, the 149, anything 135 plus, people are oohing and eyeing over. And you could kind of feel that anticipation whenever he went for a big serve. But I think mixing it up, picking his spots better with the serve, I think that was huge. And then just, I mean, flat out belief in a lot of ways, like really thinking and believing that he should and will have success at this level. I mean, I think he shell-shocked Francis. I think Francis, and then that third set, obviously, Francis, there were the 2 double faults from Shelton. Francis had to set points. Shelton saves it on that crazy slap winner return.
I still remember that. It was insane.
And then, did he get schooled by Djokovic? Maybe in the first couple sets, Mark. I agree with that. I think that that third set raised his level. Novak got a little nervous. Actually, that was interesting to watch.
I agree.
And then,
well, when I say schooled, it was like Djokovic did just enough to do what he had to do in the big moments. It was like, look, I don't need to beat you 6-love. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to find you're going to wobble on your serve in one game. I'll get the break, and that's all I need. I'll hold my serve. And I just thought it was just a really sort of efficient professional match from Djokovic, and be like, I know you have all these weapons, but here's how I'm going to neutralize them. And I think in that experience, hopefully, it's a learning experience for Shelton, where he goes, okay, now I've seen that, and now I know how to adapt to some of that stuff.
I don't disagree. I also thought, Novak sort of imitating Ben on the celebration. I thought that was actually, Novak almost like taking notice of, like, wow, this guy's, was there mockery in that? I actually didn't think so. Ben said, how about Ben saying imitations is the finest form of flattery.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
And that was an icy handshake. There wasn't a lot there. So I don't know.
No.
I mean, and I think that, now the job is, and Brian Shelton and the whole team for Ben is, how do you take sort of being on the center stage at your home slam and figure out how to put it into going to Vienna and Stockholm and being a top 20 player and being the hunted. But coming, obviously the Coco moment is, I said cultural. I stand by that. I think Ben was a coming of age tennis moment for himself. And man, I mean, look at, three American guys in the quarterfinals. Taylor Fritz, I think that was big for him to finally get to a major quarters.
Exactly, especially after the disappointing year he had last year. I mean, losing in the first round, we understand Tracy Johnson's kid, who's a good player and he knows Taylor. But was it Brandon Holt? Do I have the name right? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah. But I was very, very happy with Taylor for that. I thought that was a good tournament, and it was a nice run for Francis, but I felt like he was expecting more of himself. I think people outside of, him were expecting more. So I don't know if we rate that as a disappointment for him. I think he would probably classify it as that, and probably overall this summer, he would say, yeah, I didn't hit the notes I needed to.
Yeah, but he put himself in position. I think that's what, athletes often say is, I have to put myself into this position. And then, I don't know exactly. I actually didn't hear Francis's press conference after that loss to Shelton, so I don't know what he chucked it up to. I'd also be curious, what his thought was the night of versus a few days later.
Yeah, exactly. Time to digest it a little bit. Yeah,
it did feel like in the moment though, because I watched that one courtside too. It did feel like Francis kind of blinked, and Ben was there, and that's all it takes in this sport. Francis faded in the fourth set. And I said Taylor Fritz's first quarterfinal at the U.S. Open is what I meant. He had been stopped at the third round a few times. So huge event for the American men. And I think it's only going to make the Shelton success, obviously does huge things for Ben Shelton, but I think it makes these other American guys really that much more hungry. They're already driven. I know you've talked about on this podcast a lot, how the American guys drive each other.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Throw in the Shelton factor, I think it's that much more.
I agree. That's going to be exciting to watch these guys sort of play off each other and okay, you did that, now let me top you. That's going to be fun to watch. I guess the other match, and you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, it was on Friday night, was Medvedev taking out Alcaraz in 4 sets. And I am surprised by it. And that's not a slight to Daniil Medvedev. And I think he's a brilliant player, particularly on hard court. He's obviously won this tournament before, been in the finals before. But I just thought the way Alcaraz has been playing, certainly what he did at Wimbledon and then Cincinnati, even though he lost to Djokovic, I thought he is right on time. Didn't have to play a lot of big matches, like long matches. Thought he'd be fresh. But it just felt like Medvedev had a game plan and executed and really got Djokovic to play his game as opposed to playing what Alcaraz wanted to do.
Yeah. Got Alcaraz to play his game. I called that match with Dave Leno on US Open Radio, and it was to me seeing Medvedev close to back to his best. And he, again, they're at such a high level. And I don't think Carlos played not his best. I think he certainly helped Daniil, but I think that Medvedev, these athletes are at such a level. And I think him not being able to beat Rafa from 2 sets in a breakup at the Australian Open final in 2022,
that really put a dent in him.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 20 months since then, but like, I don't know, Mark, I really do feel like it takes so much to get to this level, and it takes so much belief and trust and intrinsic trust in yourself and your game and your team and the process and the big points. And like we were saying with Francis and Ben, like, you have to get yourself to the moment, and then how do you actually execute in the moment? And I thought Medvedev really executed in the moment, and Carlos just didn't. And I think it's interesting too. Like I mean, Carlitos has been such a comet that has just like burst through our tennis. Just our entire, no one saw him coming the way that he has arrived.
No, it was like, oh, this guy's a good player on the edge. And you're like, and all of a sudden it was just like, oh no, I'm going to be like the best player in the world right now.
Right, which is true. And then I also think we don't have enough data. Like Carlos has only played 12 Grand Slams. So like we saw a layer of Carlos that we haven't really seen before. And maybe next time when Carlos is playing his C plus game or his B minus game or whatever game it was against Medvedev, because it wasn't his A game, and Medvedev would tell you that too, is then how does he manage that? So I just thought it was kind of a like, these ships kind of going in different directions. And for Medvedev now, he puts himself right back where he was in 2021. And I don't think Novak's obviously not going for the calendar Grand Slam, but just a little bit of dynamic has changed with Novak in his age and his body. And it's not a weakness per se, but there is a little bit of a poked hole. And I do wonder how you and I are obviously recording this before he and Novak play. So I will be interested to know the audio that surrounds us in the finish line of Novak and Neil, because the opportunity is there. And Novak, what a beast! What a just. And sometimes I feel like we get lost. I mean, there's a lot of different things around Novak, but
there's a lot of layers to him. There absolutely are. And I think
and
I think one of the things that people get lost in all the layers of him, whether it's just the many things, we don't have to litigate that right now. What they kind of get lost in is like what a supremely talented, brilliant player he is, and how he's been able to sustain this for so long. And you probably know the stat. I talked about it on the show the other day. It stunned me when I found it out that if he wins today and he beats Medvedev, this will be the 4th year that he's gotten 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams. I mean, that level of consistency is astonishing to me. It's unheard of. And he's just, the fact that he's only won how many US Opens he's won? He's only won 3. Only won 3 because he's won like a zillion Australian Opens and Wimbledon. That's a testament to how unbelievably great he is. And you're right. Before, he was the computer in the sense that when you're playing a video game, he was the computer. Never made a mistake, never got tired, was just the beast on the other side of the net. And you're starting, as you said, there's a little hole poked in a little bit of that where the age has gotten him in just the tiniest bit. He's not completely invulnerable right now, even though I think he's got a heck of a chance to win today. And I'm interested to see how this plays out because, as you said, the dynamic last time was he had all this emotional energy caught up in this could be the calendar Grand Slam. And whether that prevented him from executing that day in that final where he lost to Medvedev, or Medvedev just was the better guy, I'm curious to see, because that's got to be a factor in his mind of like, there's a little bit of revenge, or, I could set the record right or whatever. But I certainly think there's going to be that underlying tone for Djokovic in this match.
Yeah, Medvedev said, Novak's not the same after you beat him. And I think that's very true. And I think, the fact that he beat him, at the US Open final 2 years ago. Yeah, it's been a really intriguing men's event. Obviously, Shelton was kind of this like, he was this surprise story, but Alcaraz, Medvedev, obviously seeing Zverev close back to his best, the American boys, delivering the way that they did, Fritz.
And Wozniacki would be one of the other like threads from the Open that I was like, what a great story. I mean, she's had 2 kids and she comes back and has that terrific run with 10 mothers in the field. And that was a cool thing. And it was good to see her back and playing as well as she did, I thought.
It was incredible. And it took the eventual champion, Coco Gauff, 3 sets to figure out how to navigate that. And, to watch, I was actually a little bummed to hear Wozniacki. I don't think she's going to play for the rest of the season. I think she's going to then try to get ready for the Australian Open. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously her choice. I would love to see her out on the WTA tour a little bit, but that's obviously up to her. And, sometimes I think when these comeback stories happen, people are like, well, what about the level? Like, how is she able to? But I think the baseline level probably never left for Caro.
Yeah.
And, to come back to beat Kvitova, to make it as far as she did, it's incredible, and I loved she loves the spotlight. She didn't shy away from that. Yeah, you look at all of the aspects of Wozniacki, and I think at the end, Mark, she was really burnt out. I think she won the Australian in 2018, and she had spent so much of her career at number one without a slam. And then I think she maybe made one quarterfinal after the Australian Open in 2018, and then ends up retiring in 2020 right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And she, I think, wanted to start a family, and now she gets to do things on her own terms. We talk about Coco, obviously, on the other side of her career, getting to play internally. And I think you could say the same thing for Woz, is the internal is clear and she's doing it the way that she wants to. And then she knows the work she has to put in. Then the question remains for her is things have to go very specifically well for her to win.
Yeah.
So without a big weapon. So then does she try to come to net more? Does she really work on the drop shot and have that as an aspect of her game? But also, mind you, the stories, obviously we've talked a little bit of Sabalenka, but Ons Jabeur fighting through her illness.
Oh, just so courageous. Yeah.
Iga actually, did well to win the matches that she did, and then ran into the freight train that is Ostapenko, and she can play so well. So a lot of great stuff on the women's side too.
Yeah, it was, and it all started with the celebration of, and the continuing celebration, excuse me, of Billie Jean, leading the charge to get 50 years of equal prize money, and to cap that off with Coco's win yesterday, and today, as you said, we're taping this is a little bit before noon, so the finals will be played in a few hours. But I don't think that's going to be a blowout on either side. I anticipate that being a really fun, close match. At least that's what I'm hoping. So I don't know, but I will work, Nick. I promise you, in the next 12 months, I'm going to work on get my ad team people, my PR people. We're going to come up with a better phrase than a tradition like no other. But this truly is my favorite conversation I get to have throughout the whole tournament. I love it, and I love getting a chance to chat with you, man. It's always great.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And what a fitting way to celebrate 50 years, obviously, of equal prize money and the Coco win. I thought that was really cool, and I just thought it was what a great U.S. Open.
Yes.
If you didn't make it on site with us at some point, it was a really like a vibrant U.S. Open with this sort of like, it had this sort of something was there that hasn't been there before at the US Open. I've done 15. I know you've done several too.
But there was a vibe. There was a vibe on the ground this year that there was an excitement about things. Yeah, cool. It really did feel different. And it was, and for those that have never made the pilgrimage there or didn't go this year for whatever reason, you got to go. You just got to go. It's the best ticket around. I mean, there is nothing like going to this tournament. And every time I talk to first timers, they're like, I can't believe I never came here before. And like, yeah, now you got to come all the time. So, well, listen, I appreciate it. Enjoy the finals, and
thanks, Mark.
I hope you get a chance to decompress. I hope everybody does after these 2 weeks. But as always, just great work throughout the commentating, stuff, the court reporting, and just everything in general. You're the best.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mark.
Always such great insight from Nick, and it really is the perfect way to end our coverage of the U.S. Open. Yes, that is going to do it for us today. So let me first congratulate all our champions from this year. Thanks as well to our sponsors, the USTA, for making the show possible. Let me also thank Nick McCarvel for coming on. Of course, thanks to all of you for tuning in. And since this wraps up our coverage of the Open, let me thank everyone in our U.S. Open radio crew for all the great work they did and all the help they gave me on this show. You guys are simply the best. We will be back in a few weeks. Until then, be well, and we'll see you next time.